Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to march forward through yet another offseason together. As always, you can always find our boots on the ground 24/7, 100% free coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars each day when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. I am recording live from Everbank Stadium following the Jaguars' 26-10 win over the Carolina Panthers. Guys, that was a win that was just one of easy. To me, it was an effortless win. You look at the win probability graphs that are out there everywhere, especially ESPN's, and the Jaguars, even while it was sloppy, especially on offense, this game was never in question. At no point, even when the Panthers tied it up at 3-3, did it feel like the Jaguars were not in complete control of this game. I mean, the Jaguars had 3 brutal penalties on the first drive alone. 2 holdings and an intentional grounding. And it didn't matter. They were able to efficiently and effectively move the ball, find explosives. Brendan Strange, had a really great opening drive. Travis Hunter made a few nice catches on the opening drive. It was one of those games that even when things maybe necessarily weren't going well, it didn't feel like it was about to cost them the game. At no point watching this game did I think, the Panthers might win. Not at any single point. And I know, I've been pretty dismissive of the Panthers over the past week. I've said I didn't think they're a very good roster. I don't think their weapons are very good. I think Bryce Young's actually not good. I feel vindicated in all of that. And I do think part of examining this Jaguars performance is recognizing that they were clearly the more talented team on paper. In that regard, it wasn't even close. They clearly had the better quarterback. They clearly, in my opinion, had the better play caller. And then, just throughout, they had the better defensive line. They had the better offensive line. I don't think there was anywhere in that game today where the Panthers, frankly, had an advantage over the Jaguars. I mean, J.C. Horn's a great player. He made a fantastic interception of Trevor Lawrence. Tet McMillan, had a really nice grab, on that Jarian Jones pass interference. He made a couple nice plays, but it just seemed like the Panthers were kind of lifeless, in my opinion. And being here, witnessing it live, feeling the sidelines, feeling the crowd, the Jaguars had complete control of this game. I called it effortless. Somebody told me that, they didn't think it was effortless on social media, and it was. It simply was. It was a game. Had the Jaguars played well on offense, because I don't even think they played well, they win that game by, instead of 16 points, probably closer to 26-30. The Jaguars steamrolled the Panthers, and I think that obviously a lot of positive things to take away from that. One is the defense. The defense, I thought, was the biggest question mark entering not just this game, but this season. Of course, the offensive line was one. Of course, seeing what Travis Hunter's role will be. Of course, seeing how Trevor Lawrence will adapt to Liam Cohen's scheme and coaching style. How will the running back room shake out? Those are all big questions. But the most important one, by far to me, was how will the defense, and more specifically, how will the secondary look with all the new pieces that they have? Because, they have 2 new defensive tackles who got reps today, in Austin Johnson and Colin Saunders. 2 new edges, in Emmanuel Ogbah and DeJuan Smoot. In the back end, they have a new starter in Andrew Wingard. They have a new corner in Jordan Lewis. They have a new safety in Eric Murray. They have a new corner in Travis Hunter. There's a lot of newness to this defense. And I thought the defense, outside of a couple plays that I thought were more self-inflicted than anything, I thought they took the Panthers' offense really to the wood chipper. And yeah, I do think, and I'm not being hyperbolic, this is actually what I believe, they were playing one of the probably 7 to 10 worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think you have to factor that in. Like next week, Joe Burrow is not Bryce Young. I know the Bengals had their own struggles against the Browns, but the difference between like the whiplash and going from Bryce Young to Joe Burrow to me could be absolute bonkers. But good and productive defenses take advantage when they're playing a bad offense and when they're playing a bad quarterback. And that's what I felt like you saw the Jaguars do on Sunday. I mean, a 3-turnover game. They had one multiple turnover game last season in 17 games. And that was against the Minnesota Vikings. They made it happen again today against the Panthers. I mean, they got their first turnover on the second drive of the game. They didn't get their first takeaway last year on defense until week 5. They had 8 takeaways on defense last year. And after 4 quarters this year, have 3. Almost halfway there. So I thought the defense did a great job of taking advantage of a bad offense. I thought Anthony Campanile, you saw him, with some good disguise looks. He sent some nice pressures. I thought the defensive line was very disruptive. They definitely were getting ran on a bit on the first drive, in my opinion. After that, I don't really know what adjustments, it was or anything like that, but it just seemed like they tightened up. They settled down. More guys than just the front 4 were making plays. You saw Dennis Gardeck with some nice plays against the run. You saw Andrew Wingard and the rest of the secondary make some plays against the run. Eric Murray is another one. I think that, when you're looking at defense, the only, to me, real negatives in a great performance were plays they did to themselves. Ted McMillan, 2 third-yard conversions one against Tyson Campbell, one against Travis Hunter. Those, to me, were completely self-inflicted. I mean, the Jaguars played such soft off coverage that they basically handed them the conversions. The big, explosive play downfield that I know it didn't count because of the penalty, but nonetheless, the penalty on Jarian Jones, that's a self-inflicted play. The scrambles where they lost contained, that's a self-inflicted play. I thought that otherwise, as good as you could ask, from the defense. I thought offensively, they did some nice things. Obviously the run game, 200 yards rushing. Travis Etienne, was as good as he's looked in a long time, I think. I mean, he looked explosive. He was breaking tackles. That 71-yard run he had to set up the Brian Thomas touchdown after they were in their own territory was one of the best runs of his career. So I think that, there are definitely some positives. The offensive line, I thought, had a solid showing in the running game. In the passing game, they only allowed 1 quarterback hit. I mean, that's, look, Quint Allen had more touches than the Panthers had quarterback hits, and he's a 7th-round rookie who touched the ball twice today. So I thought there were definitely some, impressive bright spots there. I thought Trevor Lawrence, up until the weather delay, looked really good. The second half, mostly the third quarter, much less consistent, I guess you would say. He started spraying it a little bit in terms of the accuracy. He had that one miss to Brian Thomas that was high. He had the J.C. Horn interception. But overall, I thought that the offense, had some nice moments. I was more impressed by the scheme, I think, than anything else. I mean, some guys were running wide open, especially at the tight end position. Liam Cohen really was dialing things up. But I think the one thing to watch, the one negative, glaring negative in my opinion from this game, were the penalties. Double-digit penalties. You had 3 alone on the first drive. You had a penalty that took away a pick 6. That's obviously on defense. But, I mean, they had a delay of game out of a timeout on offense. The penalties were a consistent theme, dating back to training camp. Very consistent theme. And then it kept happening in the preseason. And now it happened again, against the Carolina Panthers. And it ended up not mattering as much because, again, they were playing an inferior team who, even while playing sloppy, they beat soundly. So I thought, all in all, pretty effortless performance from the Jacksonville Jaguars. But, of course, there is always opportunities for them to improve. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. We'll be back next time.